Welcome to Mission Driven Founders, where passion meets purpose. If you're dreaming of starting your own business, whether it's in beauty, wellness, or beyond, you're in the right place. We are going behind the scenes with inspiring entrepreneurs who are not just building brands, but driving real change. So hit subscribe, tap the bell for updates, and stick around. This conversation could be the spark that ignites your journey. And today is a very special episode. Back by popular demand, literally our most listened to guest up to today is Kacie Schady, founder of Love and Light Botanicals. And this is going to be a series, a really interesting series of behind the scenes, her brand, and also what really it's like to have a business. So, Kacie, your last interview resonated so deeply with our community, but today it's going to be completely different. We are launching a brand new series that is going to help you deconstruct the wellness industry and show the behind the scenes.
I love that. And thanks for the warm welcome, Wanda. I'll try to live up to the hype that we've created.
Oh, I'm sure you're going to past the hype because there's so much that you're going to share. And I'm really excited because we talked about it behind the scenes, but now we're going to bring the behind the scenes here. And we're moving past the aesthetic filters to talk about what actually takes to build a brand, formulate with integrity, and live a life of true resilient wellness. So thank you so much for creating this series with us. And today is episode 1. Since you were here last, the brand has continued to grow. For anyone who missed your first episode, actually, your first interview, because this is the first episode of our series, can you give us the quick start version of your journey? What was the aha moment that led you to study organic cosmetic science and start Love and Light? Just a quick one, because if people want to know the whole story, they can go to the first interview.
Yep, absolutely. I would love to. So, the tagline here is that in my 30s, I broke up with the beauty industry, and here's why. I was struggling with hormonal acne and, of course, turned to the beauty industry. And all of these harsh products I was using to sort of fix my skin only left it more damaged and hypersensitive, but also eroded my confidence. So I actually started making my own products. Didn't really know what I was doing yet, but I dove into research on skin health, trying to understand how to address these problems more holistically. And then later on, as I approached 40, I kind of fell into the anti-aging algorithm and broke up with the beauty industry again, really committing to wanting to create products that spoke to people who lived the journey that I did, women above 40 who struggle with sensitivity and also are kind of tired of this fear-based anti-aging marketing that is eroding our confidence. So I went back to school for organic cosmetic science, as you said, and that's how Love and Light Botanicals was born.
I love that story because when I was a teenager and I didn't know anything about the beauty industry, I would go to CVS and all these drugstores and fill my cart with, those abrasive pads that you would clean and strip all the oil out. You would strip your whole skin out. And it was just so much, like so many toxic ingredients and aggressiveness on my skin. It was so bad for my skin. And luckily, I had acne. I think most teenagers, not some are blessed with no acne, but I had acne during my teenage years, and then I had acne during perimenopause. So I was like, okay, what's happening here, right? You get acne again, and then you find out with, the clean beauty industry that you actually need to use gentle botanical products that your skin is going to accept, and not that your skin is going to repel in the form of rashes and acne and all the breakouts that we get when we don't treat our skin well. And with Love and Life Botanicals, you you created the most natural botanical products. I mean, I just ordered mine, right? I just ordered my bundle on your website because you have that really cool discount thing now that I love that. It's not promotional, but it's educational, this episode, but I have to say that was cool that you create bundles and get a super discount. I love that. Anyway, going to our second question. which is where we're going to really dive in to that topic that is really polemic, the well washing. So we had the greenwashing, now we have the well washing. We're calling this new series with you the reality check. That's what it's going to be. This is the name of this series, guys. We just created the name because let's be honest, the industry is currently saturated with what they call, what you call, and I think you created this name, right? The wellness fantasy effect. Oh, it's so glossy, it's so expensive, and it's so misleading, really, truly. Who has the time to have that life of a wellness influencer, right? All the 2 hour meditation when you wake up and all that magic and glowing. So, to ground us here, Kacie, can you explain what greenwashing and what well washing actually looks like in the real world? And how can our listeners, the savvy consumers that we have here, who want to choose wisely, spot the difference between a brand with a deep-rooted mission and one that has just a massive marketing budget? Tell us the naked truth here.
Yeah, absolutely, Wanda. So I love that we're stripping this down and kind of getting to the real talk. What's interesting about this topic is that, at their core, these two concepts, environmentalism and wellness, they're rooted in genuine goodness, right? Protecting the environment and prioritizing our overall wellness. They're absolutely worthy causes. The problem is what happened to both of these concepts in the hands of a multi-trillion-dollar industry, which is the wellness industry. This idea of taking these concepts that consumers have a deep, real belief about and sort of exploiting them for revenue growth. So you asked, what is greenwashing? What is well washing? This is really when a brand uses environmental or sort of like health forward buzzwords to promote their products. So often the basis for some of these claims gets a little blurry. And the other kind of dirty truth here is that these types of claims and across both of these industries, it's largely underregulated, especially in the US. So this is kind of a marketing approach to make people feel like they're investing in their health by creating this carefully constructed image of wellness. And you called it the wellness fantasy, right? We've been talking about this sort of wellness fantasy effect where this image of wellness has been so romanticized across all of our social feeds and in all of this marketing content. It looks beautiful, it looks aspirational, but the real truth is that it's completely out of reach for most of us. We don't have the time, we don't have the energy. We all have a budget that we live on, and that gap between this wellness fantasy, this idealistic picture that's been painted by the industry, and our real lives, they actually make us feel further from the solution that we're seeking, which is our health and wellness, not closer to it. And so this manifests through like the ways that you can kind of look for it as a consumer. I mentioned buzzwords. So when you hear things like chemical-free, toxin-free, detox, things that kind of sound too good to be true, this is a really great opportunity to kind of dig deeper and really look at kind of the substance behind these claims. The other thing, the scientist in me takes offense at this idea of chemical-free. Okay, water is a chemical. So it's not inherently a bad term, but we've kind of used this fear-based tactic that kind of I talked about in the anti-aging space, where we're focusing too much on these things to kind of scare us into a product, or even like what's not in the product. So we've all seen like the big letters on the back of a bottle of shampoo that says no sulfates, no parabens, no PFAS. Instead of focusing on what's actually in the product and how it can really help you as a consumer. So what I love to promote is, this idea of real transparency. So when you're thinking about, is this brand, mission driven, purpose driven, can I trust them? You're going to see things like a full ingredient list. There's not going to be hidden ingredients inside of the term fragrance or natural flavoring. Like those are typical things that you see in this space that should make you question what's in that fragrance blend. So it's about a brand's willingness to like stand behind their products, whether it's through a happiness guarantee, a flexible return policy. this genuine commitment to the consumer's overall experience and a willingness to educate them with well-researched content and taking the time to kind of stand behind their why. This is really, at the end of the day, true wellness. It's not complicated. It's not aspirational. It really should be rooted in sustainable habits that are realistic, approachable, and we can all put them into practice in our daily lives.
This was awesome. And it's so true. Like I see kids nowadays, kids I say in their 20s, oh, I have to buy the ring that costs $500. I have to have the app, I have to have the workout clothes or this makeup or that. And I'm like, you don't have to spend all your savings to be healthy, to use healthy products. All you have to do is, like you said, look at the label, look at the company, look at the founder. What is truly the mission? Are they educating you on their ingredients, on their products? Then there you go. There's transparency. But when everything is just so Hollywood, everything is magical and sensational, and you're like, no, that's not real life. If you go out into nature, you're not, you're in a very simple environment that is giving you so much power, like health wise, mental health, spiritually, and you don't need all that, like you don't need to spend a fortune. And even your products are at a very reasonable price. If you think about it, like it's a very fair price for the value that you deliver. So I agree with what you're saying. You don't have to have a huge budget. You have to really look behind the packaging, behind all the marketing, and say, hey, where's the mission? Where is the purpose in this company, right? In this brand. I love that. So the 30-second reality versus the TikTok trend. I think this is a very good opportunity for us to talk about this. I am a huge believer in my 30-second simple routine philosophy. You've mentioned that real wellness is built on sustainable habits, not the next viral TikTok trend. Why do you think the industry pushes these 10-step unattainable standards, and how does that actually hurt our skin and our mental health? Because it does. It hurts. It's not just our skin, right, that gets overwhelmed with 10-step products. It's also our mental health, because who has the time, the energy, and the money for all of this?
That's exactly right. Yeah, fully aligned. It's it's really interesting because right now the beauty and wellness industry, it's such a contradiction to itself right now, isn't it? What we actually need as humans from a wellness perspective is to heal and live a balanced life, slow down, simplify, and reduce stress. You mentioned getting out in nature, one of my favorite hacks to just like decompressing, just being outside. Um, but yet the industry is really telling us to do the exact opposite. Part of the reason why I believe it's become such a saturated and competitive space. I mean, it's very lucrative. And so everyone wants, market share when you think about big business. And now the messaging around self-care has fallen into this really unhealthy cycle of constantly chasing the next trend, the next new idea, anything that's going to get eyeballs, clicks, and conversations. So we keep reinventing and sort of overcomplicating this idea of self-care. You used a perfect example. It manifests in this like 10-step routine, skin cycling, all these trendy things. And at the end of the day, this isn't truly at the benefit of the consumer. It's really rooted in driving revenue, right? And you can see how that becomes a real problem for the consumer. The impact is that we're all incredibly overwhelmed. We're more confused than when we started kind of digging in and getting information and trying to come to a solution. And feeling like a real skincare routine requires 45 minutes morning, 45 minutes at night, and then it costs more than your grocery bill. So on top of all of this, we're kind of also dealing with this fear-based messaging that we've talked about a number of times today. And I hearken back to our first conversation where I probably talk about this a little too much, but it really is designed to hit at our deepest level of insecurity, right? So it programs us to sort of chase this idea, whether it's perfect skin, this idyllic picture of wellness, no blemishes, looking younger, whatever it is. Now we're not just overwhelmed, but emotionally we're self-critical, and we feel worse about ourselves because of this messaging that we're receiving. It's not adding positivity. In the end, creating this impossible standard of wellness that we're talking about today, right? And I personally relate to this so deeply. It's truly one of the final straws that led me to break up with the beauty industry because, I didn't like how it was leaving me feeling. And I just felt like, I can build something different that leaves a positive impact, that sheds love and light on a space that people are really trying to find a solution for, which in my case is skincare. But the thing that often gets overlooked when we talk about skin health, right? We talked about the emotional component of it. But with skin health, when we're kind of chasing all of these trends, and the trends are focused on incorporating a lot of new ingredients and a lot of steps, especially if you struggle with sensitive skin, which is my story and the customer that I relate to, it's constantly introducing a new product, a new ingredient. You're essentially guaranteeing that your skin is going to be just as overwhelmed as you are, right? And this is why I'm such a believer in a simple routine. We also promote this 30-second routine. We can all take great care of our skin, and it can still be approachable, achievable, regardless of how busy our life gets.
It's so, so true. And I love that you started Love and Light Botanicals to solve your problem. And then the more you go to events and talk to your customers, you're like, oh, we had the same problem. Oh, I'm also looking for this solution. And of course, there's a lot of people like you, like me, that are looking to guess to get less overwhelmed in this beauty industry and the wellness industry, and actually, have something to make our lives easier and not harder with products. Products shouldn't make our life more complicated, right? I love that. So the solopreneur struggle. And I hope we can get this out there because there's so many entrepreneurs today that feel so alone in this world, and they need to share, right, what you're sharing right now and what a lot of other entrepreneurs go through. And in this series, we really want to talk about the reality of the founder life. People see the success, they see the beautiful packaging, they see the beautiful products, the trade shows, our big smiles, but they don't see the imposter syndrome or the late nights. So, can you share a behind the curtain lesson or a funny founder moment that reminds us that even experts are still learning every day? Because what we, try to show our audience is sometimes not the reality of what we're living, right? We finish our day, we also have to clean our house, we also have to cook dinner, we also have to walk the dog, we have to do so many other things, and this journey is can be so lonely if you don't have someone to share with, a business coach or a group. So tell us about this behind the curtain, what happens in your journey.
Yes, absolutely. So you alluded to it, Wanda. Of course, we want to put our best foot forward and present with a polished image when we're interacting with customers, when we're on these podcasts. But the reality is, we are also human, and we have other roles in our lives. And, nobody nobody sees us behind the scenes, chat GPTing something at late hours of the night that you feel like you should already know, or rewriting emails 15 times because you're overcomplicating it, overthinking it. But being a self-funded founder really is about teaching yourself new skills every day because you're the one that's putting the work forward. There's simply no one else to do it. So I've looked at this as a journey of failures, and those are great things. Those are lessons, and I will tell you, I have many of them. If you want a funny story, and again, I do have many, there's quite a few occasions where, a misprint or, a grammatical error has made it to either like a printed production item or the website. I've had customers point them out. I mean, when you're your own graphic designer and content creator and editor, it's very hard to spot your own mistakes. So, the humanity and like the wabi sabi is in all of it. But I think the most humbling part is that, your job is changing almost daily, and, you have to kind of ground yourself in the fact that you cannot be an expert at everything. And that's where your network comes in. And that's where, the people that you surround yourself with as a founder, you can either be on an island and make it a lot harder, or you can find your community of people that are trying to do something hard and amazing and worthwhile. And they can help lift you up when you're in the depths of beating yourself up about, whatever small or large mistake it is that you're ruminating on. But I think success isn't being an expert in everything. You know what your superpowers are, and running a business independently is a completely different animal. It's an ongoing education and a lesson in humility every single day.
It's so true. And it brings me back to, you were talking about the mistakes and the funny things that we do, like the late night emails. Sometimes you send an email to the wrong person, or you write something that doesn't even make sense. That's happened to me so many times. And then the next day I'm apologizing. I'm like, I just reread my email and I have no idea what I wrote because I was so tired. It was 1 o'clock in the morning and I was still packing boxes. I was still doing things. So I truly believe in the beginning of my life as a business, owner, I really like was harsh on myself when I made a mistake, when I failed. And then now that I'm 50, I'm like, you know what? Failures are not failures. They're actually opportunities for us to grow, to learn and to grow. Because if you have a failure and you immediately give up, then you didn't learn anything, right? But if you continue, you're like, oh, okay, I learned that in the past. I'm not going to repeat that. I'm going to make it better. And I think that's what really we have to do. We have to be able to laugh about our mistakes. We have to be able to breathe and say, let's start over, let's do it again, and not give up on your dreams because you're being too harsh on yourself. It's just not worth it, and it's not worth it to create illnesses also from all that stress, because there are no things such as failures, because so many people failed a million times until they got it right. So that's practice, right? Failures are practice for opportunities to grow. I love that. Thank you, Kacie, for sharing your experience, because it's important for us to know, especially those who are starting a business or those who are struggling, because there's some days, really the reality of it. Some days you look at your cash flow, you're like, how am I going to pay my suppliers? How am I going to pay my bills? Look at this, self-funded. I'm bootstrapping. You're not backed by a big investor or VCs or anything. So it's, we really make things happen when we're a small self-funded business. When your business is your passion, the pressure you put on yourself can be immense. So how do you, Kacie, handle that downward pressure while trying to maintain your own wellness? How has being a founder changed your personal sense of self-assurance? Going back to what we talked about, the failures, but sometimes you're like, oh my gosh, like, I really do this, right? So tell us about your experience.
Yeah, I would again be happy to. So that imposter syndrome in this environment, it is really real. And it's constantly, it's easy to constantly question, am I growing this fast enough? Am I making the right decisions? Am I taking enough risks? It's like such a moving target. And, there's a couple of things that I have learned along the way. I'm fairly well into my third year. And one of the most important things that grounds me is, stopping and realizing that by now I have thousands of customers who I've genuinely helped. I've built a connection with, made a meaningful difference in their lives. And at the end of the day, that's why I'm doing this. And it's a huge motivator. So that's huge. And I think, the downward pressure piece of being self-funded, it's a love-hate thing. I made the decision really early on to be completely self-funded because I experienced burnout in my corporate career, and I really wanted to give myself this control and independence over my destiny, right? But the downside of that is when I let my foot off the gas, there's no one there to pick up the slack. And, so that's a lot of personal pressure that you put on yourself. And it took me a while to realize the silver lining here, but this also means that I am in the driver's seat. And that realization was also another unlock for me. I think I've shared my imposter syndrome struggles with you, and that I've always struggled kind of with my inner confidence. Um, but I think that this is super relatable to a lot of founders, and also, a barrier that we're all going to face no matter what journey we're on. And early on, I did definitely fall into this habit of comparing myself to my competitors. And it created this enormous pressure to try to tackle everything all at once. And it didn't take me very long to realize that that was not serving me, that was not sustainable. But when I refocused, got super clear on who my customer was and why I was doing it in the first place, it gave me this clarity and sort of a permission to let go of those things that maybe other people were telling me. Are you doing this? Have you heard of this? Why aren't you doing this? So whether it was completely letting go of them or maybe delaying them to a later phase of the business, to stay focused on what mattered in the moment and, be true to my why. And how I got started. So that kind of slow down to speed up mantra has honestly kept me grounded, more than anything else. And the last thing that I'll share on this is a more recent win for me and realization. But I've started to make reflection a real priority, because I was noticing that I wasn't giving myself that opportunity to reward myself, or give myself the recognition that I needed. It was kind of this vicious cycle of keep going, keep pushing. And I could see that that would cause burnout at some point, and I'd already been there in a different life. So it was a genuine growth tool for me, because I got myself out of that day to day, that exhausting, all consuming kind of keep grinding. And I gave myself permission to kind of look back and acknowledge how far the business has come, what I've learned, the wins, the lessons. And it's been one of the greatest gifts to self-assurance that I have given myself. So something really empowering about being able to reflect and say, look at what we've created, look at the impact. So I would say that reflection piece is really important.
That is really true. And we talked about this in our last Crunchy Connect, that when we compare ourselves to another brand or to another person, it's so harsh, because what they're doing, how long they've been on the market, it's a completely different story. So if you compare yourself, or if you let others compare you to that brand, oh, but you I remember when I had a hair care brand, oh, but you don't have the supermodel, advertising for you, but you don't have, oh, but you don't have that ingredient, but you don't have. No, I don't, because this is what I'm doing. This is what they're doing. So the moment you can say that to someone and not just sink and say, oh, I don't have that, or I can't do that, because it's different. Their audience is different, their customers are different. Maybe their customers are going to open up and try your products as well, but you're never going to be them, and they're never going to be you. And that's what we have to see, that we're not just individuals here, we're also different brands, like unique brands, and we can't compare ourselves to someone else's results. Even if it's a direct competition, we can't do that. So this is really, really a valuable lesson for the ones who are starting, and for the ones who've been in business for a while, because sometimes you've been in business for so long and you're like, oh, but I've been in business for 20 years. Why am I not, why is my revenue not like that other business that's 20 years? Because it's a different business. Are you happy? Are you fulfilled with what you're doing? Are you helping your audience? Great. That's what we have to give ourselves a tap on the shoulder and say, congratulations, you fulfilled your dream. You are helping people solve this issue, your skin, your hair, your health, in some way that is your unique way, right?
I love that.
And in our last conversation, Kacie, we talked about how Love and Light Botanicals earned the CMB certification, which is a very rigorous gold standard for transparency and social impact. But since then, we have added the CMB membership. And tell us a little bit, share with our audience, how has being part of the Business Hub supported your journey? What does it mean to you to have that collective backing as you navigate the challenges of being a mission-driven founder, because although we're aware of all of that, sometimes we need someone else to tell us, right? You're doing well, or talk to other founders in the same situation. So what has that experience of being in our Crunchy Connect meetings, what has that contributed to you as a founder personally and for your business?
Yeah, I would be happy to share. So, I mean, in addition to, just the acknowledgement of the product through the certification, I think I mentioned earlier that network that you need to build, right? Surround yourself with people who are going to lift you up, people who are going to hold you accountable and be supportive. And I think certainly the CMB group is definitely one that I hold close to my heart. It is a consistent sounding board. People that are really in it, right? And, are living this like founder journey and experience similar struggles. And it's a really great way to kind of, bring a problem or ask for help or share knowledge if you happen to be the one that's figured it out. So I think just that camaraderie and community has been really huge, because it is so hard to do this, and it's even harder to do it by yourself, sort of on that island. And so I think that's been huge, just having a support network and someone you can resource.
This makes me very happy, because these monthly meetings that we have, they teach me so much. We teach one another, we learn from one another, and it is, to me, it's very valuable. And I've heard from you and from other founders that it's a really good space for us to just vent sometimes, and exchange experience and exchange business cards sometimes. Like, oh, person is helping me with social media, or this app, I'm trying this app, you're trying that app. So it's, we're not just trying, and we're not doing the trial and error by ourselves. We're each trying our own solutions, and coming back and bringing, and the sharing is important. I think the support is important, but I feel like we're growing together. Like, if you think about last year and this year, how much we've come a long way. I really like that. I think it's special.
It is. It's a wonderful thing.
Kacie, this is the perfect start to our series. Thank you so much for being so transparent and just, authentic here with us today. You always are authentic, but today you really opened your heart, and I love that. And I really can't wait for part 2, when we dive into how you're scaling this mission, because you are growing fast, girl.
Yeah, I'm very looking forward to sharing some of the deep secrets.
We are looking forward to that. And to everyone watching, remember that every choice we make can shape the future. So let's choose wisely, live intentionally, and support those who are making a difference, especially our friend Kacie here, who is sharing her naked truth here. So stay inspired, stay motivated, and let's keep building a brighter future together.